everyone. Another episode of the Hector and Mike Experience, Common Sense in an Uncommon World. For this particular segment, we wanted to kind of talk about something that has gotten my dad all pissed off last time I saw him this past weekend. I mean, look, let me frame up my dad. Teamster guy, blue collar worker, living on a fixed income, and first thing I get in the house, I would visit this weekend, and first thing I was like, "Hey, mijo, what the hell's going on with the insurance?" And so he's pissed off because his insurance rates are going up, not just on auto, but at the same time
Hmm.
they were looking to see if they can go somewhere else to get lower home insurance, and they basically were told that if you decide to go anywhere, he said, "Look, we're covering you right now, but we're not taking on any more plans." And the vast majority of people have also received that information, where a good number of people are going into what is called the California Fair Plan, which is
Right.
an insurance of last resort.
Hmm.
And it is. I mean, look, as we looked a little bit further into this, there were a lot of companies that have now left California that are not signing up new insurance, new homes. It's impacting the real estate market. It's impacting people's pocketbook, and at the same time, I mean, it is putting California kind of in a very difficult bind, because as a California Fair Plan, as it gets more and more people, it basically assumes more liability. And it just, I mean, I don't know if you've seen it in your own rates. I've seen it in mine, where
Oh
it
yeah.
seems like it's an industry that's just cratering on itself, and a lot of it is government imposed mandates, government problems, and it's getting bananas.
You hit it right on the button right there, which is that there is in the insurance world. There's some things you can control and some things you can't. You can't control tornadoes and hurricanes.
Right.
You can't control snowstorms. Um, you know, in California, you can say you can't control wildfires, but if you want to look at it holistically, yeah, you can help mitigate the potential for wildfires, but environmentalists don't want to do that. And so we have a higher risk of wildfires in California. And so all of those things are um, things you cannot control. Uh, but what you can control is the way government does business and the regulation and all of that kind of stuff. And that's the problem that we have in California. This is a perfect example of the policies that get passed have an impact on the consumer. And so you have in California policies passed, boards set up to regulate and provide oversight, determine rates, and that kind of thing. And the free market is talking. I mean, that's what's happening. The free market is talking, and the insurance businesses are doing in California what the consumers have done in California, which is go someplace else.
Right.
They've looked at it and said the potential for loss that we have there, the things we have to deal with in California that we don't have to deal with in Nevada or Idaho or Arizona, or even high places like Texas, which get whacked by storms and tornadoes and even hurricanes. It's not worth the investment, and that's the point that they've reached through the free market. And so you end up in this pool, risk pool, which, you hit it right on the button, that it's going to be, the risk factor is huge. People, is insurance of last resort is what they call it.
Yeah.
And there's a reason for that. I mean, I remember when I first got a driver's license, when you had to crank the car to get it going. My insurance rates back at the time, and this goes back a long time, was like $2,200 a year for
Yeah.
my car insurance, because I was a new driver, and I was in my early 20s at the time, and because of that they put you in a risk pool, and your coverage is actually pretty crappy, but you have some coverage, so in case you run somebody over, you're covered, and it doesn't ruin your life. But the insurance product itself is not great. The cost of it is not great. The exposure and the risk is huge.
Well,
Um,
and here's the exposure right now. I just to kind of put it in perspective. I was looking up at some of my notes here, and In 2018, the exposure from the California Repair Plan was $50 billion. As of October of 2023, because you got insurance like State Farm that is no longer doing signing up new people, the exposure for the California Fair Plan as of October 2023 is $290 billion.
So
Uh,
almost 6 times as much.
yeah, and when you look at our state budget, I mean we wouldn't be able to cover any of this.
No,
I mean, mind you,
that's
and we're in a $68 billion deficit right now.
yeah, and that's another great point is we're 68 billion in the hole. We're writing checks we can't cash
Right.
as a state, and so what that what that means is they got to find more money some way, and the easiest way to find it is you, me, and people that are listening to us right now that are
Right.
in California, and I think what's happened is that the insurance companies have said, I think the insurance companies do things. Look, they're profitable businesses. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, by the way, a lot of them are small businesses that are, agents of larger companies. But that's how they make their living. And they've just looked at it and said, from the standpoint of a business investment, even though California has so many more people than other places, so much larger geographic space, and probably so many more opportunities, it's not worth the risk. And
Well,
so
and
they
that's
say, okay, we'll just move somewhere else.
but that's where I think a lot of these folks, especially in government, fail to understand, and or I don't. It's not that they fail to understand, but they're naive about it. They think that businesses are out here acting as some sort of charity, like
Right.
well, they're not going to increase prices because they're going to do it for the better good of
Right.
society. Well, it's hard to be in business when you're not making money. You've got expenses to amount for. You've got when you increase the minimum wage, you've got to pay for the higher wages. You got to pay for higher insurance rates. You got to pay for higher costs of goods being, gas prices. Whether you're getting goods on Amazon, well, you got to fill up the truck on Amazon in order to get the goods. So when your costs go up, your pricing goes up. When you got California and you've got all these different wildfires because the state government isn't willing to push back on the environmentalists to help trim our forests, to help maintain, fire breaks. And a fire breaks out, and you got a lot of places that go up in smoke. And guess what? You've got to account for there is an insurance cost there to replace this. And so it's it's this circular firing squad that just seems it seems absurd. And then you've got the insurance commissioner Ricardo Lara that he did that guy just seems like he doesn't want this job or he never wanted it from the get go. Where the hell is he? The
Yeah.
the
Well, that's, yep.
the state puts together. This is the beauty of government. We're going to put together a committee to study what is happening. Do you really need a committee to realize that you've got a problem and try to come up with some sort of solutions? Sit down. It's just sit down with the industry, sit down with the consumer advocate groups, and at the same time just kind of figure something out because what is happening right now isn't working.
Well, there's a flaw in what you just said, and it's the approach. The You're right. There's this approach of a free market system and a socialist system. This is a perfect example of it. In the socialist world, insurance is something that is for the greater good and should be supplied by the government. That's their world. In the free market world, it's you provide insurance and you compete with each other to provide a better product at a better price so the consumer benefits. So now you have your choice. 5 years ago, you had a free market system where your rates were lower, your choices were greater, and your coverage was better. 5 years later, because of the policies that have been applied in the state of California through people like Ricardo Lara and others in the General Assembly, you have fewer choices, worse products, and less coverage. There's your choice, one or the other. It's a perfect example of the difference between free market and socialism. In California, you get those people around the table. First thing you got to do before you ever get to any of the issues is decide what philosophy are you going to take going forward. Is it going to be the philosophy of the government and the philosophy of the socialist policies that this government passes in this state? Or is it going to be the free market? I mean, then if you can get past that point, then you can start dealing with the other particular things. But that's, again, that's a product of what California is right now.
Yeah, yeah. And they don't seem any closer today than they were 6 months ago or a year ago when this started cascading down as being a problem of solving it. I mean, they're on break right now. They don't come back to January, but at the same time, I mean, for a lot of folks, I mean, that's a renewal process that's happening right now.
Right. End of the year.
You know,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's a
I,
renewal process that's happening
yeah.
right now, and it's coming at a cost, and it is a heavy cost that is being paid by a lot of folks, and so that's the. I mean, it's hard to put it out into other words, but I mean the amount of hits that people are out there getting, I mean, pummeled with it's staggering. I mean, food prices, gas prices, insurance prices, electricity prices, everything else that is just one thing after another. I mean, it's no wonder people don't like government or hating those that are in office right now.
It's no wonder Joe Biden's numbers are in the tank.
Yeah, yeah,
That's what you just said was Bidenomics.
oh yeah,
And because make no mistake, the policies here are the same policies that are approached and supported at the national level right now. And so, what happens here happens elsewhere because we have an administration that believes what happens here is a good thing. So, and you can tell that by the number of people that they put from California into this administration. So, what you just described is Bidenomics. And what they fail to see and are now seeing is your dad. Because your dad is reflective of the fact that, the Democrat, other than having a son who got dropped on their head and is not a hardcore Democrat, your dad is reflective of the average working person who has been, working all of their life, now living on a fixed income, now having to deal with all of this stuff, and a former Teamster, and should be a hardcore in the bank Democrat voter. But the Democrat Party, which used to be the party of the working people, has now abandoned the working people. They're now the party of the, I don't know, the leftists or the progressives, and not to get too far into the political thing, but just look at what John Fetterman said. By
yeah.
the way, my new hero for 2023.
He
John
he is
Fetterman,
like the comeback guy of the
right,
year.
absolutely.
Holy,
Comeback
holy
guy of the year.
mackerel.
Yep. I mean, and what he said, and he caught shit for it from people in Pennsylvania, is that he's not a progressive Democrat, he's a regular Democrat. And people beat the crap out of him for it because he said he's not a progressive Democrat. Democrats need to, if I'm a Democrat, I need to pay attention to that kind of message because your dad is exactly the kind of voter that the Democrats are going to lose.
Yeah, it's he's like I said, the frustration and especially difficult for folks who are on fixed incomes. Been
Right,
retired, and so it's not as though you got a lot of these folks just go back out there, back up to work. They're retired,
right,
and when you don't have answers, and it's a maddening part is like, well, we're going to have another committee, we're going to have another hearing, we're going to go study this. It's like, look, while you're trying to go out and study it and make yourself feel good about it, I mean, you got a
fix
lot
it.
of real folks that are being impacted by this. Yeah,
Right, fix it.
yeah. Don't dwell on
Just
it. Act.
fix it.
Yeah.
Right.